Welcome to A Friday Reads, where I talk about what I read, what I'm reading, what I hope to get to next, some book haul stuff, just general chattiness, and let's get into it because I've been reading a bunch, and I've been using Becca's Bookopoly board on my Instagram to decide the order in which I read my TBR, because I'm trying to use that as a motivating factor to get through all of my obligations so I can mood read, because I have a lot of books that I've gotten in said book haul that I'd really like to get to soon, like I really want to. But I want to try and get through my obligations first because I'm just that type of reader where if I have obligations hanging over me, it's hard for me to just like whimsically enjoy a book until they are done. Also, there is someone doing construction outside and my cat is in the room. So for any extra background noise that the microphone might pick up, I apologize in advance. So because of Becca's Bookopoly, there actually are two short things that I've read this month already that were not on my TBR. So we'll talk about those first because I don't think anyone was expecting me to read them, including myself. And the first one is Batman Year One. Ryan got this and The Long Halloween and where is it? Dark Victory, because of the new Batman movie. And I've been wanting to read this. This is kind of like the revamping of the origin story of Batman that came out in the 80s, and it was fun. Got a nice background into Batman Year One, also Commissioner Gordon, which I don't always get as much information on. I like Batman. I like superhero comics. I think that's what I'm learning this year because I've read this and Far Sector and I've been having a good time. I think I'm getting more comfortable picking these types of things up to read, and it was a great way to spend an evening. And the other thing I picked up, because I got like the prompt of winter and I didn't have any idea how to fit winter for a prompt, and that's The Fourth Island. I still think this counts because a lot of what it evoked in me was cold, chilly times. People are knitting sweaters. Yeah. So this is the same author for All the Horses of Iceland, and she seems to thrive in historical fantasy that is really set organically in its time and place. At least this made me feel like it was 1800s Ireland. It's one of the islands around Ireland, actually, or like a forgotten island. And basically there's this mystery of this person who comes on the shore of an island and he has a knitted sweater that no one recognizes because a lot of identity can be found in a sweater knit from a particular place. And then some people are lost and find their way to the lost island. And what does that mean? How does despair travel between people? It was a very melancholy but beautiful story. I appreciated its themes. I thought it was lovely to read. I don't know if I was quite in the correct headspace to pick this up, and I liked All the Horses of Iceland a smidge more, but I do like what this author does well, which is historical fantasy, where you have fantastical elements, but there's also a great attention to historical detail, and it's done in a very lyrical, storyteller, reflective way, which I do appreciate. So that was fun. So those are two things that were not on the TBR that I started because of Bookopoly. A thing that was in the TBR that I finished, and yes, that's right, I finished it. That's Knife of Dreams by Robert Jordan, my last Robert Jordan book. And I really liked it. The reason I was able to read this is I drove back from Ohio to Boston on September 2nd, so I had a lot of reading time. Now, I couldn't finish that book. That book is 32 hours at one-time speed, and I can only listen to it like at 2.5 times speed, and I had to start a little slower because it's the car and not the same as, like headphones. But I got like half of it done on the drive, and then I was really invested. Like, all of the threads that have been kind of languishing about, a lot of them get tied up in this book. And so although I think it's a shame that this author couldn't finish his series, I did think this was not the worst place it could have been left by him. There are a lot of things that have been put in a very solid position. I actually feel like we are approaching the ending when I read this book. Like, I know there's 3 more books, but there's a lot of stuff that we've referenced that we haven't referenced in like 7 books, and I was just like, oh, finally, we're talking about this again. And I enjoyed it, and for once, I felt the foreboding. The horror was really on the page for me. For once, I don't really have audible complaints about character interaction, probably because we didn't have time for those moments. There was a lot of plot happening. There was a lot of ground to cover, and for once, I just got to enjoy the story. This is one of those few times where that happened to me in a Wheel of Time book. So this and a New Spring, solid Wheel of Time entries for me that I got to read this year. And like, it even has me excited enough that, we're going to read The Gathering Storm, presumably before the end of the year in our buddy read. And I'm like, yeah, I kind of want to see what's happening. So this is one of my top 3 or 4 Wheel of Time books so far, I'm pretty sure, which, it still had a, 3 hour and 40 minute prologue, which is still a choice. Like, I don't even think I read a Malazan chapter that's that long, if I'm being honest. Like, there was one that was close in Bone Hunters, but I don't think it was actually that long, and the one in Bone Hunters was way better and earned its length. Another one I finished is Their Eyes Were Watching God. This is by far my favorite modern classic literary work. That doesn't mean I give it 5 stars, because things that are not written in modern language are hard for me, but like this author's use of language I thought was really well done. A metaphor was not just put there because she just wanted to like show that she could do that, which I feel like authors do that sometimes. Sometimes authors are just like, look what I can do with words. And I'm just like, yeah, you did. Here it all felt intentional. It felt like it served the story. I really didn't know where the story was going, but I was along for the ride. It was like watching a very compelling drama movie. That was for me, at least. I was definitely not prepared for a lot of the twists and turns that happened, and a lot of the time I was reading this, because what's interesting is, like, this is set, I believe, in the late 1800s, early 1900s. I don't really have a point that marks me in time other than the age of her grandmother, and the fact that her grandmother was a slave, so it's like, I think a generation and a half past Reconstruction. I'm unsure. But regardless, this book was written in 1935, so for this book, it's not really a historical fiction when it was written, but it's hard for me to not read it as historical fiction, so I was trying to combat that, and then combat my own modern ideas of what a relationship and marriage should be with what the standards would have been at the time and in the communities that we're following. So that was a challenge for me. But I really did love this work, and I love that it followed Black communities, and it wasn't about Black communities struggling with white supremacy and racism. That's there. You can't have a story told in the South and it's not there, especially in the time period it's set in. But it was mostly just about Black cities and society, and Janie trying to figure out where she fits in with the gender norms and in marriage, and I really liked it. There was one thing I really wished didn't happen in this story, because there's a romance in here that I really liked until it didn't. And it was just a struggle there. But I'm glad Evie forced me to read this, because it's been on my TBR for a while now. Ever since, I want to say 2020. I think that's the year when I first started hearing about it on BookTube. And it's like, I really want to read this. I've been trying to read more classic works that speak to me. This is one of them. And I'm glad that this TBR swap made it happen. And the last book that I finished is Ace. I read this for Jess Owens Book Club. We'll have a live show eventually. Yesterday we had reading sprints, and that's in the future for me. I'm sure they were fun. They're on Jess's channel. And this was very informative. I learned a lot. I think if its goal was to be a primer for people who are unfamiliar with the topic, A+. Like, truly, I had not thought about these things a lot, and I recognize, that this is a very fluid, nuanced topic. Like, the definitions she brings forth are maybe not the definitions that everybody uses or agrees with, but I think she also does a good job of being not gatekeepy about what does it mean to be asexual. I would definitely recommend this to a lot of people, especially because, as the book brings up, it's really hard to define or make people relate to a situation that they don't experience. Or in, like, the definition of asexual, or one of the earlier ones, is the absence of sexual attraction. Well, how do you know if you have the absence of something that you have not felt? So it makes it hard for people in the community to discover they are in the community and aren't just, wrong or anything like that. And that was in air quotes if you're, listening to this. Obviously, you're not wrong if you don't have sexual attraction. But it was very informative. I'm glad I read it. The audiobook was great. And so now, what am I currently in the middle of? I'm in the middle of The Way Spring Arrives, this short story anthology of translated speculative works by women and non-binary authors from China. It's been good. I was going into this hesitant because a lot of my friends have had lukewarm to fine experiences, I feel. Like, no one was raving about the short stories in this collection. And I guess I wouldn't say that any of these have been 5-star short stories, but they have been lovely short stories. I've really enjoyed them. And I felt like a lot of people were having forgettable or lackluster experiences. And I don't think I've had one that I haven't liked so far. And I'm 100-some pages in. And I've only read one of the essays, and people love the essays, and I didn't actually really like that essay. So I don't know what is to come. Let's see what my favorite is so far. Well, I love, actually, the two that I like the most actually kind of are about being caregivers to younger people. Actually, one of the ones I also like is about being a caregiver to someone older. But The Stars We Raised is about children who raise these stars and what happens after the stars are no longer shiny and what happens to one particular individual. I really liked that. The flash fiction, What Does the Fox Say? Really liked that. Blackbird was the one in the nursing home. The Restaurant at the End of the Universe was interesting, but didn't quite land for me, and I think that that's more of like a cultural disconnect where I wasn't quite getting what the main character was getting from the sci-fi cultural exchange. I truly felt like I missed something there, and I blame that completely on me. And then Baby, I Love You was great. I read that this morning on my commute and couldn't put it down, and yeah, it was good. It's about someone who needs to make a program, a gaming program where people can simulate having children without actually having children, and he needs to make the 3D holographic version of it. And he kind of, sort of influences his wife to have a baby so he can have real life experience with that baby without really telling her, and obviously, you know, things develop from there. So this has been great so far. Also, sorry if you're hearing the cat. He's walking around and yelling because Ryan's running and he misses him. So that's been a good thing that I've been reading so far. I'm currently trying so hard in the next day or two to finish The Sweetness of Water for my local book club. This is set Reconstruction era, the South, and I already read Their Eyes Are Watching God, which is not Reconstruction era. I think it's like 10 to 20 years after that, but it's also the South. This is Florida. Yeah, I think this is Florida, and the other one's like Georgia or something like that, and I think I read them too close to each other. And so it's not like fantasy where it's like, oh yeah, I can just keep reading fantasy books. Like, that's just not who I am when it comes to like this type of thing where one's historical and one's not, but they're both set in very similar time periods and locations. This one's not bad. We're following two brothers who were just recently freed, who are working with this man who's decided to put a farm on his land, who recently thought he lost his son. And it develops from there. Like, the town is not happy that he's paying a living wage to these black men who are working on his farm. The brothers themselves have different life goals. I am very scared for all my characters because, I just don't see this going well. But it's interesting. All of our main point of views have been compelling in their own way. I just think that it's not the story I want to be reading right now, but I have to because book club's in like a week. And it's not like there's anything about the writing style that I find really compelling like I did with Their Eyes Are Watching God. The audiobook is completely serviceable, but nothing I'd write home about. So I have like half the book left. And it's great while I'm like doing chores and stuff, but I'm running out of chores to do. And then surprisingly, the audiobook that I really do want to get to is Fairy Tale by Stephen King. This is a book that I would not have put on my TBR if it wasn't the book that won the patron spinning wheel and the poll. Like, this was not even remotely on my radar. I have such mixed experiences with Stephen King. And maybe I finally have unlocked the key, and that is I should only consume his works with audiobook, and that is how I will forever read Stephen King from now on, because this has been fun, although I'm very nervous. On the cover of this book, you see there's a dog. It's a very good dog. It's already an old dog. It's an old German Shepherd. And I refuse to go onto the website to find out if the dog lives or dies. And I'm very nervous about the dog. I'm very early. I'm like 4 chapters in. But I'm having a good time. It's reminding me a little bit of Lisey's story. I don't even know if that's a good comparison. But like, I'm being reminded of it, which is another Stephen King book I like. So who knows? Especially because like our main perspective is just like one person recounting something. And he has a similar way of internally thinking to Lisey, I feel. I don't know if that's just because, like, Stephen King has, like, a type when he writes characters or what. But I'm intrigued about when the speculative element's going to really come in, but I've also just been kind of enjoying this contemporary story in Chicago. Well, near Chicago. It's been fun. I don't have anything really to say. This kid, like, feels like he needs to be a good Samaritan because his dad recovered from being an alcoholic, and so he helps this man who broke his leg and takes care of his dog while he's in the hospital. That's all I got so far. And the dog's adorable. And I'm nervous. And I really want to keep listening to it, but I need to get my chore book out of the way, if that makes sense. I hate having books that are a chore. Like, it's my least favorite thing. And what I'll probably read next, because it was my next role, spoiler alert if you haven't seen my Instagram, is it would be Night in Caracas, which is in Venezuela, and I've been wanting to read a Venezuelan book my entire life. So I'm hoping that I at least don't hate it. And now for a quick book haul. I have some books. One I bought for myself is the Illumicrate edition of The Jasmine Throne. I got it used because I wanted it. Yeah, that's it. I just wanted it. I love hardcover books, and I really like these sprayed edges. Like, normally I don't like sprayed edges, but I feel like this makes sense. And it's, you know, a nice naked hardback. Oh, this is some art for the characters. Oh, and a book plate. Haven't even looked in the book, apparently. But has some pretty, you know, naked hardcover. I'm just happy to have it, and I've ordered the Oleander sword, but I'm not going to get that for a while because I think it still needs to ship from England. But I'm happy to have this. It's going to go on my shelf here. If you haven't noticed, I rearranged things. We'll see how long that lasts. I have 2 short story collections from Evie. A few of these are from Evie. I know we're all surprised. This is by the author who did Build Your House Around My Body. This is her debut collection, and I want to read them. And then this is the author of Our Wives Under the Sea, which was a book I talked about in the August recent release roundup. Or no, it was July recent release roundup. This is her debut that everyone raves about, and I wanted it. And this is very pretty. I really like it. This is a very pretty cover. I have no idea what to expect from it, but 2 more literary short story collections with maybe speculative tones to add to my collection. Tor sent me Ocean's Echo, which is in the same world as Winter's Orbit, but a different pairing, and I'm intrigued by it, and I want to read it. So maybe this month, when I finish my obligations, I'll get to it. I have a copy of And What Can We Offer You Tonight, with its nice little Nebula winter sticker. Look at it. And also, that's like a nice artful way of doing it. It like is integrated with the like, this is how you put a sticker on a book. But I'm very happy to have it. Also need to get more books from Neon Hemlock. That publisher really intrigues me. And then the last 2 that Eva got me recently also have stunning covers. I know nothing about them. So this is the novel by the author, Bestiary. And look at this, like, what? I don't know what it's about, but that's a pretty cover. And then I think this is a short story collection with, again, look at that cover. That is stunning. So lots of shiny things. Oh, I actually even have more things to tell you guys about. So those are the things that were gifted to me, and I bought myself the Illumicrate. But I also bought myself 2 books. I got August Keatko and the Mechas of Space. I really want to read this. This seems like a fun, rompy time. This one I'm not going to read till the audiobook comes out, but it's a new speculative short story collection. And I've been trying to read more short stories in the year that they come out for the Hugo's nomination, and this has like 8 new short stories in it. And I was really interested. It has just like so many authors, like so many. And then this book is maybe my most anticipated read of the month, and who knows when I'll get to it. But it's The Spear Cuts Through Water by Simon Jimenez. And this is actually another one Evie got me, but she sent it to my bookstore, so I had it in my bookstore pile. And guys, the end pages. Look at the end pages. It's so pretty. And it's... I just want to read it so badly. And it's in second person. I'm so excited. I'm so excited. Anyways, that's this video. Let me know what you're reading, what you're doing. How's your readathon life going? If you're doing readathons, how's mood reading going? If you're mood reading, or, you know, just the start of the fall. Because it's been feeling fall here. It's been great. It's been glorious. I've been cold. Oh, so good. If you want to leave an emoji, leave a spear for Spear Cuts Through Water. I feel like there's a spear. Make it up if there isn't. And otherwise, like if you liked it, subscribe if you want to, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.